What is up, you guys? Welcome back to another live stream here on the Sergeant Tank YouTube channel. Thanks so much for stopping by. I want to introduce a very special guest. We have Mike Monje here, part of the Grand Valley Aquarium Club. That's how I met Mike and a lot of great other hobbyists and aquarists. Very like-minded folks here in the Grand Rapids, Michigan market. Tonight we're going to be talking about specifically Asian Barbs, correct? I know
yeah,
that's been
Asian Barbs.
That's good. Now that's been something you've been working with for
about 2.5 years.
Nice. And of course, we'll be keeping an eye on the chat as we go here, so bear with us. So hopefully let us know, give us a thumbs up if audio, video, before we kind of get things rolling here. Want to make sure everything's working for you guys and you can hear. Definitely get your questions ready to rock and roll. Mike has been in the hobby for many, many years. He's a fellow of the club, which there's only a handful of fellows. That means a lot of dedication of time, resources, that kind of stuff that's devoted to an aquarium club. And if anybody has been following me for any period of time knows the importance of an aquarium club, it definitely has helped me a great deal. So definitely Mike is somebody I look up to for sure here in the hobby. So I've learned a great deal myself just from getting to know him over the last 2-3 years. We were talking about this a little bit earlier. I want to say it'll be 3 years I've been get more involved with the club. The swap that's coming up actually this Saturday, which is one of our big annual swap meets for the Grand Valley Aquarium Club. So why don't you kind of let them know a little bit about who you are? I know that you have, I believe, a website now and that kind of thing.
I don't really have a website, but I do sell on Get Gills. So Extreme Aquatics is my store, and Jeremy did a thing on Get Gills maybe 2 months ago.
Yeah.
A month ago, something like that.
Yep.
So I set up a store on Get Gills. It's Extreme Aquatics. But then I do have a Facebook page. It's Extreme Aquatics. I'm on Instagram as Extreme Aquatics. And then obviously I'm on Facebook as myself too.
Right on.
So social media, that's what I do. The Get Gills store at Extreme Aquatics. I pulled my livestock temporarily because of the swap Saturday. I'm going to bring a bunch of stuff to the swap, and I don't know what I'm going to have. And when I list something at Extreme Aquatics at Get Gills, like if it's a plant, I tag the plant, and that is the exact species you're buying. I don't say you're getting Cryptocoryne lucens. I say you're getting this group of Cryptocoryne lucens. So I pulled those just till we get done with the swap, and I don't know what's going to sell, what's not going to sell.
Sure.
And then I'll restock the store probably early next week.
Okay. And the links for you guys have already been down in the description. So if you guys weren't aware of that, even though it's titled special guest, I always include like the links in that. So you guys can definitely check out like in the anything associated as far as social media wise. Same thing with the Get Gills. You can check it out down below in the description. Let's take a look here at the chat. Just want to give a few shout outs. We got John Gonzalez first in the house. Thanks so much, John, as always, for the support. We got Kevin, Denny's Fish Tanks. We have Cole, Asian Barbs. Love this topic. Glad to see you in here, Cole. We have Candy. Thanks so much, Candy, for dropping the link there to Get Gills. Let's see. We got Jamie, Mr. Bees. David. We got Bob Kaler in the house. Heather, Darcy, Vanessa. I think you guys will be coming to the swap Saturday. Hope to see you guys there. Let's see here. Aqua Balls. I think that Rob Myers. So again, a lot of familiar faces. So again, I definitely appreciate it. Both of us do for the support. I'm really excited about the topic. I was telling him just maybe like an hour ago, I haven't even heard one of his talks yet. So that's going to be kind of my first question for you with regard to talks. I know that we're going to be kind of just breaking the surface
right
with this topic. Now, if somebody wants to reach out to you here in the U.S. market with regard to one of their clubs, are you open?
I'm open, and I'm traveling for talks this year. Last year, I did a talk, obviously, in Grand Rapids, Kalamazoo, Detroit, Indianapolis. This year I booked for Louisville in, I think it's August. I'll do that.
Yeah.
And then I'm tentatively booked for Greater Pittsburgh Aquarium Society. I'm thinking it's March, but we're still working on that. I'm still working with John Groom on that. I'm finalizing the plans for that talk. So yeah, I am traveling with a talk this year. It's Beautiful Barbs. I only deal 2.5 years ago when I decided to do something different, because I did live bearers. I did Tanganyikan cichlids. I did Victorian cichlids. Then I went back to live bearers. Nobody's really doing anything with barbs. So 2.5 years ago, I started looking into it, and the African barbs are still a mess. They're working on rewriting the entire taxonomy of the African barbs and reclassifying everything. But in 2011, they went through the Asian barbs, and, you know, Puntus was a catch-all. I mean, every time they discovered a new barb, they threw it in the Puntus species. Well, they went through and they redid everything in 2011, and they came up with Dawkins eye, and they came up with Pethias, Hallertii. They broke things out a little bit. Puntus is still kind of a catch-all, but they really went through and reorganized things. And then I made some contacts in India. I mean, Unmesh, he's part of What About Barbs on Facebook. Unmesh is a ichthyologist with the University of Bombay, and he's gone on several collecting trips, discovered and classified 4 new species of barbs in just the last 2 years. One of those species, he actually watched it underwater, and the male cleaned a rock, defended the territory, coaxed a female in, spawned, and then they left the territory. Almost cichlid-like behavior. That's the first time that's ever been observed in the wild. So when I started looking into this, I'm like, barbs is kind of ignored by the hobby, and I don't really know why. It's like everybody's first fish, and then they move on.
Sure.
So then I looked into it a little bit more, and I talked to a couple of the old timers, older than me. And what happened was in the 60s, the fish farms got a few species of barbs in, and they were fairly hardy. They bred easily. The equipment wasn't very good in the home aquarium. Heaters weren't all that reliable. Filters weren't very good. And barbs were hardy. They could withstand a lot. So they gained a popularity, but only a few select species. And now we have a lot more available to us. They're discovering new species all the time. And I really wanted to get into that, and I wanted to educate people on, they're not just a starter fish. It's not just, I'm going to go buy 3 cherry barbs, and that's what I'm going to start with, and I'm going to upgrade to cichlids. Cichlids aren't necessarily an upgrade, because you can get a lot of cichlid-like behaviors that people like out of barbs. You can get a lot of live bear type behaviors that people like out of barbs. So it's not just, they're not just egg scatterers that are simple fish and then should be ignored from that point.
Sure.
So for 2.5 years, I've been working at it and studying them, getting other species in, watching their behaviors, getting spawns out of some of them. I got some people in England that I've been talking to. They can get different species than we can, more readily available in the hobby. There's one gentleman in particular that I've been corresponding with. He's got some real different ways of spawning barbs that I'm just starting to experiment with. So it's really been an interesting voyage.
That's awesome.
Something different.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, just myself, I've been getting into them about the last 1.5 years. So, but I still got a long way to learn with regard to those. I know a couple of the ones. Now, the ones that I have that I acquired are either one of those groups with regard to like cares. I'm trying to think of
Puntigris anchiosporus. You got. I didn't look to see if those are on the cares list or not. That's from Borneo. That is kind of I think it's more the wild type tiger barb, more closely related to our domestic tiger barb than almost any other fish.
Sure.
There's, I think, 7 in the Puntigris species since they broke them out. None of them, if you study them, line up with the tiger barb that's in the hobby.
Yeah.
The tiger barb that's in the hobby doesn't match anything in the wild. So it had to have been hybridized in somebody's pond between a couple of different species.
Sure.
because it doesn't truly line up with anything. It's kind of like the bushy-nosed pleco. It doesn't really line up with anything in the wild.
Exactly. Any questions, you guys, feel free to go ahead and put it here in the chat. Mikey, I see that you're in here. It looked like possibly under 2 different accounts, so I know that we're having some issues there for whatever reason not showing up. So I did see you in there. I appreciate it. We got Teresa in here. We got Steve Christian, which is part of our club as well. Nice seeing you here, Steve. Very cool. Must say this is the first barb talk I have heard. Interesting. So I'm not the only one that's been part of the club that hasn't heard the talk yet. So now I don't feel as guilty. So yeah, drop those questions in, you guys. I guess starting off now, since we're kind of focused on the Asian barbs, what would be somebody that's kind of new into the hobby that is either get back into the barb? What would be a good one to start out with where they may have success?
Well, my favorite is the cherry barb. I've been working with the cherry barb. That's the fish I started back with. And the problem with cherry barbs in the hobby today is they've been mass produced and pond raised so much that they're a little bit susceptible to ick or velvet. And they really don't have the coloration. So for 2.5 years, I've been working with my line. I've got the coloration way up. They're super hardy. They grow pretty good. They spawn readily. I only sell my cherry barbs wholesale to watercolors. Okay. I don't sell them to hobbyists because I have a deal with Ben that I will refer people to his store to buy the cherry barbs.
So if you guys want good genetic lineage, definitely watercolors is right here in the Grand Rapids, Michigan market. So you guys, actually, I'll link that. If you're watching this in the replay, you will see a link in an iCard at the top of this video in the replay. And you guys can definitely check it out. I did a tour there a couple years back, so I encourage you guys to check it out. And again, things do change. But a lot of great livestock there.
But the cherry barbs are my favorite, and they're probably the easiest to spawn out of any of the barbs.
Sure.
No matter where you acquire them from, they're fairly straightforward. Put the females in a 2.5 gallon tank, maybe half full. Feed them heavily for a week. Add the males in right after the lights out. Add one more male than you have number of females to make sure you get enough sperm for all the roe that's going to be cached. And then the next morning, pull them all out when the females are all thin.
Yep.
Depending upon temperature of the water, anywhere from 24 to 72 hours, they hatch. I always spawn over Java moss so that as soon as they hatch, as soon as the egg sac goes away, they can feed on the Java moss. Because I work, so I can only feed like once a day or twice a day when they're first born, because I feed them in the morning before I go to work. But they'll feed on the Java moss all day. I also wring out sponge filters out of my other tanks when I clean my other tanks over top of fresh spawn.
Okay.
So all the grunge goes into that tank.
Yeah.
Looks really nasty, but the baby fish feed on it like crazy. And then it goes into that sponge filter,
sure.
And they feed out that sponge filter too.
Now, with regard to kind of keeping it streamlined as far as like pH, you talked a little bit about temperature, but as far as like carbonate hardness, general hardness, have you noticed like I gotta look at my notes here.
Yeah,
you're fine.
The only species or the only group that really are finicky when it comes to water parameters that I've found are the Desmopuntus, which are the snake skins.
Yeah.
They're all soft water species. They all require black water. I haven't successfully gotten a spawn out of them yet. I know Chase tried with the snakeskin barbs, and I don't believe he has been successful yet either. They're really, really a soft water species. Sure. Everything else, our parameters are perfect for them. Our tap water is Lake Michigan tap water is perfect for almost every species of barb that is available to us in the hobby right now.
Sure.
The most interesting one was drape fin barbs. They are what I call a trickle spawner. They're probably the most fun of any barb because in my talk I have video of it, but the female will go up underneath the plant leaf, lay one egg, and the male will follow her and fertilize the one egg. They'll invert upside down on the plant leaf, lay one egg, and then move to another plant. And they do it at 5 o'clock at night. So you get home from work, you feed the tank, and you can watch them. They'll spawn maybe a half a dozen to a dozen eggs per female. They'll work their way around the tank name on the underside of leaves. Ludwigia repens works really well. They love the underside of the Ludwigia leaves because they're big and round.
Sure.
And it's not an egg scatter. They deposit one egg, fertilize it, and then move on. And I've got really cool video of it.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's a great tip there, you guys, for sure. So Carlos is wondering here, any chance of finding the Aurelius barb? I haven't seen those in years. And any tips in keeping them alive since they say they require high oxygenated water? So any tips on those?
Well, the question is the Aurelius barb. I have Aurelius barb, but it's not really Aurelius barb. The barb that's in the hobby is Tambrapani. That isn't a true Aurelius. The true Aurelius has never really been imported into the hobby. It's a totally different fish. They're about the same size. The true Aurelius is not nearly as aggressive as the Tambrapani are. You can get them. I have them. I haven't spawned them yet. They're still growing out. I got them as juveniles, the Tambrapani. The trade name Aurelius is what I have.
Okay.
There's a couple people spawning them who have them in the hobby who refused to change the name, even though the rewrite was done in 2011, and they're still calling them Aurelius, but they're really not truly Aurelius.
I'm really happy that you're bringing it up and clarifying it. Thank you.
So yeah, the Tambrapani, I don't have the true Aurelius. I have the Tambrapani, which is the trade name Aurelius. They are still available. You can get them.
Okay.
They're just not easy to come by.
Sure. So I'll keep a note of that, Carlos, and definitely I'll keep you on that. And yeah,
I probably got 6 more months of growing them out before I can even attempt to spawn them. Sure. I got them in a 180.
Okay.
I got them in a 180 with an FX6 on it, with my mascara barbs.
Okay.
And doing water changes on it, trying to grow. My mascara's out big enough. My mascaras are about 3/4 of the size of your filament barbs.
Gotcha.
So they're not quite big enough to spawn yet. They're really close. And the trade Aurelius Tambrapani that I got are probably half that size yet. They probably have to at least double in size before they'll spawn.
Right on. So yeah, definitely keep those questions coming in, you guys. This is the opportunity. I know that anybody that's been following me for any period of time, I get very elaborative, but this is taking it to a whole new level. This is somebody right now that you need to definitely.
Can I do one more thing on the Tambrapani barb?
Yeah.
If you get them, do not keep them with panda barbs. The Harlardia, the coloration is really close, and they will absolutely destroy panda barbs. The trade Aurelius barb and the panda barbs cannot. They're the only 2 species of barbs I know that can absolutely not go in the same tank. They'll devastate one another.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's not just from me. I got that from 2 people in Great Britain, somebody from India, and then myself have all had the same experience. So
sure,
that is the only 2 species of barbs that absolutely can't mix. And the size difference is enough that panda barbs always lose.
Sure. Now, as far as like with community breeding of various species, of course not. Whereas interbreeding or hybridization, where, like I know right now with the barbs that I have, I know you offered a few great tips there on trying to get those kind of conditioned and get those spawning. Let's say we used 40 breeder or 20 long as an example. What would be some other fish that would go well where you could still essentially get some yields?
In like a community style setup and breed?
Yeah.
If you're going to breed in a community tank and you set up like spawning mops on the bottom, you could put black ruby barbs or cherry barbs or panda barbs in either a heavily planted tank or a tank with a lot of yarn mops on the bottom. And I keep live bears with them and get yield. Okay. My panda barbs are in a heavily planted 33 long, which is 48 inches by 12 by 12. And it's heavily planted, and I get fry from my panda barbs. I don't get a lot, but I get probably 6 to 8 every 4 to 6 weeks that show up as big enough juveniles and I can cook them anymore. And I've got them in with platies, panda guppies, and that's all I got in that tank now. I can move the other stuff out. I had some Danios in there.
Sure.
But in a heavily planted tank, yeah, I've gotten yields. It's kind of like when you breed killifish. If you breed them in a heavily planted tank, you'll get some yields, but it's really diminished.
Exactly.
So it is doable in a community style tank. Your yields are going to be way down.
We got Susan in the house. How you doing, Susan? So yeah, keep those questions in, you guys. Again, Mike is very diverse in many different areas, but this is just, I know, something that's near and dear that he's been working on for about 2.5, 3 years now, specifically with the Asian Barbs. So keep those questions coming in. If you guys are watching this in the replay, thank you so much. Anybody that's just popping in here, thank you. This is Mike with the Grand Valley Aquarium Club, and all of the links are down below for you guys as far as any social media is connected to him. So I definitely encourage you guys to check that out. Thank you so much, Candy, for dropping those links as well. Definitely appreciate it. So I guess now we looked at kind of an easy one. Now, what if we've done the cherry barbs, we've gone through some of those? What would be like the one Asian barb that would just be like a challenge to?
Well, besides the snakeskins and the saltwater species, which I have not been successful with, and I've only dabbled with them, I haven't really dedicated a lot of time on them. I did try and failed a little bit. I wanted to, when I first set up my 180 for barbs, I picked up 7 bala sharks. That's a barb, believe it or not. That's a barb that doesn't spawn until it gets 10 inches long.
Sure.
And it's a barb that really truly needs to be in a shoal, not a school. And they're not a schooling fish, they're a shoaling fish. And I tried to raise up enough of them to get them big enough to spawn, and I had a nick outbreak and it didn't work out for me. But that is one, that's kind of my bucket list barb.
Sure,
I really want to get enough bala sharks small enough, grow them all the way up and try to spawn them, but it's a big fish with a huge bio load.
Oh, I bet. I can only imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But to see a group of them swimming together that are 8-10 inches long in a 180-gallon tank, and that's
sure
could be the only thing in the tank. That would be, everybody sees bala sharks as a 3 or 4 inch fish, and they think they're really cool, and they don't live very long because they keep them alone.
Yeah,
they're really susceptible to ick and velvet. They really, actually, truth be known, shouldn't really be in the trade because they're kind of endangered in the wild. They've been over harvested, and logging has decimated them.
Sure.
The only ones that are in the hobby are hormone bred in Asia. They can't get breed without hormones. It's kind of like the torpedo barb. They can't get breed without hormones.
Makes sense. Now, speaking of cares, because I know that's something near and dear to me, I know to you and a lot of us, is there one there on the market that us as hobbyists that should be focused on that may come, that we see circulating around in the hobby?
Yeah, the red line torpedo barb is like the most famous barb in the whole world. Everybody wants it.
Yeah.
And that fish was introduced in like 1999. It was at an aquatic show, and it caught on like wildfire. And within 6 years, that was 90% of the fish that India was exporting were only the torpedo barbs.
Oh, wow.
And it decimated the wild population. I mean, they were
sure.
over harvested. Now they've put some protections in the Western Gap Mountains. They've protected some areas. Population's coming back. They put a fishing season on them. They've only been bred hormone-wise in Asia, the Asian countries. I have read 2 online reports of accidental spawnings in the aquarium, but I don't know anybody who has actually worked with them and gotten to spawn them successfully. That would be another bucket list species that I would have. That would be a fairly difficult one to do.
Well, I do have the snakeskin barbs.
Yeah, I know you do.
So the pressure is definitely on because these are people I highly look up to. And you guys know I've talked about not only Mike on the channel on various occasions, but also Chase. So the pressure is on for sure. Looks like your wife is in the chat. Hello. see.
She's just making sure I'm really doing this.
All right. Lost that question there. Let's see here. Carlos is wondering, are there some barbs more sensitive to medications or treatment? And if so, what meds should be avoided in the barbs?
I don't ever use medication on anything, ever. I will use garlic-infused spirulina flake if I have a sick fish. If it's internal, I only use garlic flake food. I will put them in a tank and turn the heater way up. If I'm dealing with ick, I'll turn the heater way up. I'll put a heater in that tank and turn the heat way up and turn the oxygen level way up and burn it out of them. I keep about 500 gallons of marine aquariums. The really cool thing is if you have a freshwater fish and it's got parasites and you put them in a marine aquarium for about 10 minutes, all the parasites drop off. If you got a saltwater fish and it's got parasites and you put it in freshwater for about 10 minutes, all the parasites drop off.
I know. That's a great tip.
I go back and forth to I don't use medicines at all.
Sure.
I tried ick treatment one time in my life and the silicone on that tank is still green. I don't use any medicines. I only use I really, really believe in the garlic infused flake, especially the spirulina, because it'll cleanse their system. It's so much roughage in it for any internal parasites.
Aqua Apprentice said here, I know you already talked a little bit of with regard to cherry barbs, but is there a good beginner barb for breeding? Like, what would be like out of any barb?
If I was going to pick barbs to begin with that are fairly available in the hobby and I never bet a barb, I would either pick cherry barbs. Black ruby barbs are readily available. Puntus bimaculatus, which is the red stripe barb, not to be confused with the torpedo barb. Puntus bimaculatus was one of the first barbs I ever spawned, and it's really a nice fish. The males are so beautiful. I saw them at Bluefish about 3 weeks ago. They had bimaculatus in there. Those species are readily available. They're pretty easy to spawn. They all spawn the same way. They're all egg scatterers. They will spawn in a 2.5 gallon or a 5 gallon. They actually, I got one for Christmas. There's a spawning net you can buy on Amazon that has a false bottom in it with some slats with a divider in it, and it's all a net breeder. So you can put a male on one side and female on the other side. Condition them for a couple of days, pull the barrier out, they can spawn. It drops down to the bottom of the net. It goes through the false bottom. You can pull the parents out after they spawn. You can leave the net right in the tank. I just got one off Amazon for Christmas. It's really really a cool little setup.
No, it sounds like it.
And those have suction cups hooked right inside the tank. Yeah. So you can buy, basically, if you bought males and females, the Puntus bimaculatus is very sexable. The black ruby barbs are very sexable. Tiger barbs are very sexable and easy to spawn, but I hate that fish, and I think it should be outlawed. Tiger barbs give barbs the bad reputation that they have, that they eat plants, that they kill other fish, that they kill each other. All the bad reputation of barbs all come, in my opinion, from tiger barbs.
Now with the Borneo, that's what I notice is very minimal. Yeah, exactly.
They're not like
and regular... I personally think that these even look nicer.
Right.
Yeah.
And they don't have near the aggression that the domestic tiger barb has in it.
Candy's got a good question here. As far as any tank raised, you personally, would the Denison barbs, and if so, do you sell them?
I don't work with Denison barbs. I want to. That's kind of I got to get a little bit better before I try to do. Denison barbs have not been spawned other than with hormones.
Okay.
So no, I don't sell them. I don't even have any right now. I haven't even kept them.
Rich is wondering, how big was the Bala Shark tank?
180 gallon. It was 6 foot by 24 by
big tank.
26, I think.
Let's see. Cole is wondering, ever try, if I'm saying it right, cigar barbs? CIGAR? Not sure what that.
I'm not sure what they are.
We might have to pull that up. I don't think I've ever personally heard that one.
I don't think I've ever heard that name, that trade name before.
Let's see. Keep the questions coming in, you guys. Just bear with me as I'm browsing through here. Let's see. Angelo, how you doing, buddy?
I did that with my yellow tang. See? Freshwater bath. That works.
Yeah. Let's see here. All right, so we got another question. I have a tiger barb trio for a while now, and every now and again, all three will headstand for a day or two. Is this a breeding trait? Thanks in advance.
Yes. Yeah, the male is trying to dance for the female and entice her. The female will headstand right next to the male. It is a breeding trait. They're probably spawning in that tank, but the other tank mates are eating the eggs, or they're eating the eggs. But they probably are. They're probably, most barbs are continual spawners. See, that was another thing. You know, when I did live bears, and you can overrun a tank in a heartbeat. When you do cichlids, if you do mouth brooders, if you don't pull the mouth brooder and let her spit in another tank or strip her, then you feel guilty because when she spits in the tank, everybody eats them.
Yeah.
I always felt bad when they did that. And if you do pull them and strip them every time, then you get overrun with cichlids and you can't move them. Well, with egg scatterers, you don't really overrun the tank because you might get a survival rate that's easy to move because you're going to get 6, maybe 12 every couple months. They're easy to move and it doesn't overpopulate the tank, and the eggs just are free food for everybody else.
Sure.
So it's easier to control. And if you want a big spawn, you can move 3 or 4 females to another tank, condition them up real well. Greg Sage has a really good video online on Odessa barbs, how he mass spawns Odessa barbs because he produces them for Select Aquatics. He's got a really good video on how he mass produces, and he gets like 300 to 500 Odessa barbs at a time. And
you have that lineage, don't you?
I did.
Okay.
I did. I got rid of it. I had that lineage. I spawned it. I bapped it. I sold my breeders to Cindy Westra, and I don't know who got. I sold like 3 or 4 different groups of spawns. But no, I don't have that lineage. I don't have that lineage anymore.
I've never worked with it, so definitely on my list in the future.
I bought that lineage at an ALA convention from Greg.
Isn't that funny? Let's see. There was a question earlier on now. I know you already mentioned this, but can you just elaborate a little bit? Is there like a plant that you find that does best, like one single plant with barbs, with regard to like spawning?
I keep easy to keep plants. I like easy to keep plants. Low light to medium light. Doesn't have to have CO2. Doesn't require a lot of trimming. I mean, Ludwigia you got to trim about every 2 weeks because it does grow pretty good. Carpeting plants, crypts on the bottom of a tank work really well because it hides the eggs, and crypts will reproduce, and you can sell some of those. The plant I just started working with that I absolutely love is Echinodorus quadricostatus, which is bigger than like the little dwarf sword that everybody carpets with.
Sure. It's
bigger than that, but it's the same style plant, and it's a carpeting plant. It gets maybe 3 to 4 inches tall. Bushy clumps, kind of like the dwarf sword that everybody carpets with now. The quadricostatus I really like because it grows with runners underneath the substrate. I like Vallisneria. I really planted a lot of Vallisneria in the tank, and I tend to not plant it along the back wall. I tend to plant it in clumps in the middle of the tank to break up lines of sight.
Sure.
So if there's any aggression between the groups, they can go around or through the Vallisneria, and it breaks up the line of sight. And vals are easy to work with.
Sure. Except I can't keep it alive for the life of me.
And I got bored with Italian val, so now I've got Vallisneria asiatica, which has a really nice tight spiral to it. It gets about as long as Italian val. And then I imported from Germany some Vallisneria species torta, which has a really nice tight spiral, but only grows about 4 inches tall. And yes, it's a val, and it's only 4 inches tall, which is really cool. And it's a carpeting plant.
Very neat.
So easy to keep, low light plants. Bushy plants like Ambulia, yeah, water wisteria work really well to hide eggs.
Yeah, I mean, this is another thing too, you guys. I mean, he's advanced in a lot of different areas. I mean, we could, like, not only just in freshwater, but also in the marine aspect. Same thing with plants. Very, very wealth of knowledge in plants. So if you guys have any questions here in the last 20, 25 minutes or so, this is just kind of open here. So we have another question.
My email is Extreme Aquatics. It's TIX, and it's extreme like stream, EAM, and then it's TIX for aquatics, and then it's at Gmail.
Okay.
So it's EXSTREAMAQUATIX at gmail.com.
Okay. Just
and yes, you can email me anytime.
So yeah,
that was from Susan.
Yep, thank you, Susan. Now Carlos is wondering with regard to leaf litter. Now for leaf litters, aquarium, which dry leaves work better for barbs, or do you prefer to use at all?
Well, that's kind of a loaded question because Extreme Aquatics has its own line of catappa leaves and its own line of guava leaves. It's our label. We import them from a farm in Malaysia where they're handpicked, they're cleaned, they're packaged. It's 20 to a package on the catappa leaves and it's 10 to a package on the guava leaves. I use both sets of leaves in my shrimp tanks, and I use both sets of leaves in my barb tanks, and then the soft water barb tanks, I only use catappa leaves, and I use them about 6 to 8 leaves to a 20-gallon lawn.
I would concur.
And then the other leaf litter that I will use is I like beech tree leaves, native to Michigan. I like beech tree because beech tree isn't like oak where it's going to really screw the pH a lot.
Sure.
It doesn't really leach tannins, and it holds up pretty decent. They're smaller size leaves, so you can get a lot of leaf litter and make it look really nice on the bottom. Okay. So I use beech.
See, for probably 10 plus years now, I've used just your Indian almond catappa leaf specifically. Very similar to kind of with that same ratio as far as how many leaves per 10, 20 gallons. Now, as far as the natural antibacterial properties, do you notice?
Yes.
One, would you say that they're at the top, or would you say that there's other ones that would kind of trump the
catappa leaves, or the Indian almond leaf, as it's commonly known, is got great antibacterial properties. Yep. Fantastic.
Yeah.
It's great for almost every species of fish. The antibacterial properties, obviously, every species of freshwater shrimp really benefit from them. The guava leaves are really good shrimp food, and they're really good fry food. So if you have them in the bottom of the tank and they're halfway starting to decompose and you have a spawn in that tank, the fry will feed off the guava leaves and get a lot of nutrients from it. Where the catappa leaves, when they graze off that, they're just grazing off from the biofilm on the leaf.
Sure.
But the guava leaves, they actually will eat the leaf along with the biofilm. And gain a lot from it.
Another great tip there for you guys. From the fish tank barn, Mike here is wondering now, what marine stuff have you specialized in? I know we're kind of getting a little bit.
Well, I specialize in corals, but I specialize in, again, easy. I do soft corals and zoas. I don't do any SPSs. I don't do very much with the LPSs. A few of the chalices I'll do, but for the most part, I like the zoas and I like the soft corals. And the reason I like the soft corals is because you can get a lot of color, you can get a lot of variation, and nobody does them. When you go to a coral swap, everybody has zoas, or they have LPSs, or they have SPSs. Hardly any softies. And I like softies, and they're easy to do, and they have the same water parameters as the zoas, which again is easy because you don't have to be nearly as fussy with a zoa tank or a soft coral tank as you do with an SPS tank.
Right on. Candy's now wondering, with regard to those leaves, you'll be having those available again here on Get Gills?
Yes, I will have them on Get Gills. My last shipment got delayed by about a week and a half, so in about 2 weeks I should have them back in stock.
Right. But yeah, keep those questions. We still got a few more minutes, you guys. So we'll take it right to the top of the hour. Just browsing back through if there's anything that stands out to you. Let's see. Cole said the only plants
are clown barbs won't eat our plastic. Cryptocorin eustenaria or Cryptocorin aponegetifolia, they won't eat. And they also, almost all your Nubia species you can get away with.
Sure.
But yeah, the softer leaf plants, clown barbs will devour the softer leaf plants. Like Ludwigia and most of your other crypts that live. Cryptocorin eustenaria is a big plant. I mean, it can get 15, 20 inches long. It'll lay right across the surface of the water.
Sure.
And aponegetifolia is its big brother. But they live in alkaline waters, and the leaves are really hard, and they're not. It's almost. They're actually, the leaves are harder than even an Amazon sword plant.
Now, speaking of plants, this is one I know that's a tongue twister. Is it Sawassertang? Is that how you pronounce, or are we?
I pronounce it with a B, Subwassertang.
Okay.
But I don't know.
So it's tomato kind of.
Some people say pleco, some people say plico.
Yeah. Kind of depends on, okay.
I don't get hung up on it.
All right. So you guys can't give me a hard time. Let's see. So Aquarium Monsters said, what barbs are we talking about? Specifically the Asian barbs. You'll have to catch it in the replay. You can definitely, a lot of great tips there at the beginning. Let's see. Coach Dan said, wicked excited to catch one of these, even if I'm late. Well, thanks so much. I appreciate it. Charles Smith said, nice talk again. Well, thank you, Charles. Carlos said, I agree. The guava leaves has great antimicrobial properties and antiviral properties too.
And guava leaves aren't that common. I mean, if you go and look around, that's not a common leaf everybody's doing, which is one of the reasons we decided to do those at Extreme Aquatics, is because they have so many great properties and they're great food for so many different species. And really, I mean, you can find Indian almond leaves everywhere, but you don't see much for guava leaves.
Have you crushed them up into a powder form and never tried like?
Nope. I just drop them in the tank. I don't parboil them or anything. I drop them in the tank. Within about a day to day and a half, they sink. Shrimp absolutely love them, especially baby shrimp. When they start to decompose.
I bet.
When they start to decompose. They work really, really well with Danio and barb fry.
Okay.
I've had really good success with the fry of Danio and barb feeding on them. Not only on the microbes that grow on them, but actually on the leaf itself too.
Sure. So I guess until we get some more questions, we have about 15 minutes, so still plenty of time, you guys. Just kind of keep things flowing along. I guess kind of looking at the club, because I know it's important to you, it's important to me, it's important to a lot of us. I push a lot here on YouTube specifically about the importance of an aquarium club. I know talking with Ben, knowing Ben for many years now, way back when he had a small shop, of how important it was, really what kind of got the gateway going for him, open up, like a retail business and that kind of stuff. I know we talked a little bit about kind of when you started, like, what do you feel about the importance of a club in association with like your local fish stores? I know that's oftentimes something that's brought up to me, because you get this one group that think it's more of a competitive thing, and I'm trying to just kind of lay that to rest, like, hey, we can all work together for the greater good of the hobby.
My opinion is they feed off one another. They're not a competition to one another. I started in this trade in 1972 with a little critter keeper and a pair of wild caught green swordtails. I didn't get involved in the hobby end of the trade until probably 10 years ago, that hobby club part. I was always just a lone aquarist, keeping fish, learning from trial and error, talking to a few other people when you were in the fish store. About 10 years ago, maybe a little bit more, I got involved in the club. The club part of the hobby is phenomenal. I mean, where else can you go once a month and get in a room full of geeks that think the same way you do?
Exactly.
And most of the stores have a good relationship. We have 2 exceptional stores with relationship with our club, and they feed off one another. They don't compete against one another, because a lot of the hardcore hobbyists want to keep things that stores don't necessarily have, because they don't sell to the general population. They're rare, which means when the average hobbyist goes into the store, they don't know what they are. So those types of fish you get from fellow hobbyists out of the club. Meanwhile, the bread and butter species and the things you need to maintain your tank and everything else, you can get those from a local fish store, and develop a relationship with them. And they have a relationship with the club where they offer discounts and stuff like that. I don't see them as a competition against one another at all. I see them as helping one another a great deal.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. This is actually a great question here, because oftentimes we overlook the importance of a lot of great literature, individuals like Mike that really have been just, I know for individuals in mid-30s such as myself, a lot of people here that really just kind of paved the pathway for a lot of us in the hobby. And I know for me, even as a hobbyist, sometimes I just focus too much on the technology rather than really scaling it back and looking at some good books, some good literature. So that kind of ties in here. Any good recommended books specifically for barbs?
For barbs, no. No, unfortunately, there's not a lot of documentation out there on barbs. There is What About Barbs on Facebook, because we have some scientists that work with us. There is African and Asian barb species on Facebook that has a lot of decent information on it, good information. That's a Great Britain-based Facebook page. I got a lot of friends on that page too, and they have some scientists on that page and a lot of really good high-end hobbyists. Most of the literature on barbs was all written in the 60s, which is good literature because it all still is applicable today. But no, I mean, even if you look at the Aqualog books, so they got the Aqualog on cories and rainbows and plecos. There's no Aqualog book on barbs. There's one on Danios, but there isn't one on barbs.
Yeah. So
that's one of the reasons I really started getting into it a couple of years ago, is because I just feel it's being ignored, and they're great fish. They're a shoaling fish, not a schooling fish. Shoaling fish need a group, and they develop a pecking order within that group. A schooling fish, they all swim the same way at the same time, like for predator evasion. So they kind of behave like cichlids, where they develop a shoal and develop a hierarchy within that shoal. So if you keep, they say when you go to the store, keep 6. Now, never keep 6. Always go with an odd number. Keep 7 or 9 or 11. Don't ever keep an even number, because with an odd number, you always get an imbalance of males to females. There'll always be an imbalance of males to females, which will develop a decent pecking order within the school or shoal. And if you keep an even number, chances are rare, but you might wind up with an even number of males and females, and the shoal isn't going to really balance out very well until somebody dies.
Another great tip, you guys. Let's see here. So a question earlier on. I know you've, of course, this. Let's see. Missed the beginning, so if any questions have already been asked, I apologize. What size fish room does Mike have? I'm sure that's changed.
I go by gallons. I got about 500 gallons of salt water, and I got about 16 to 1,700 gallons of fresh water. My room is 12 foot by 16 foot, and then I have another room off to the side that's 8 by 8. Now the 8 foot by 8 foot room is kind of a little breeding area that I've got set up. And then I also cure live rock in there for my reefs. And then almost all of my tanks, my freshwater tanks, are planted. I would say 90% of my freshwater tanks are planted, and planted fairly heavily. And they're planted with plants you can always be successful with. Potamogeton gayi. It's a rare plant in the trade. I don't know why it's a rare plant in the trade, because it's a really great plant. Pogostemon octopus is a really great plant. Fairly low maintenance. There's 3 different Ludwigia species that I keep, the Repens, the orange, and then the mini. I tend to go with stuff that's a little lower maintenance. I work a lot of hours. So the room is 12 foot by 16 foot. I don't count tanks anymore because I change out tanks where they're running 2.5 gallons or 5 gallons.
Sure.
I have 3 racks. 2 racks hold 20-gallon longs, 4 to a shelf, and then I have 1 rack that holds 15 gallons endways, and it holds 5 per shelf, so that holds 15 gallons. And then I have wall racks that I've built.
Sure.
But those are metal racks that are all welded together that hold that.
Sure. And I know Candy, her and I talked the other day with regard to a little bit, and I'm really excited. I know that there's a few folks now that are really getting into and wanting to start a club. A couple of tips of advice to kind of get somebody, if they're looking at just starting fresh, kind of get them on the right path.
For starting a club?
Yeah.
Trying to think of the gentleman's name. I know him real well. He's in Chicago. Rick Borstein started the Chicago Live Bears Club. He was a member of the Greater Chicago Cichlid Association for years, and he just started, like, within the last 3 to 4 years, the Chicago Live Bears Club. And he's also a member of the Federation of Aquarium Societies, which is all the clubs getting together and talking. And I was a member of that board of the Federation of Aquarium Societies for a couple of years. But Rick would be the best resource I could possibly think of for starting a club.
Okay.
And I know you can get a hold of them through the Chicago Live Bears, and I know you can get a hold of them through the GCCA. If you go to a GCCA swap meet, they'll be there.
Sure. So again, another
he would be
phenomenal
the absolute best.
Yeah, that's a great tip.
Of.
What does it take on the marine betta? Have you had one of those? Have you ever kept one?
I've never kept one because they're extremely difficult to keep. They have a high mortality rate on import. They have a high mortality rate in the hobby. I tend not to keep things that I know are going to die. I'm not good enough with that species to try to keep it alive. So I wouldn't be afraid to import a never before kept barb because I could really work at it. But when you get like marine bettas, that's really difficult to keep fish, in my opinion.
Sure.
So I don't know that much about them. I don't really keep fish. All the fish I keep in my marine systems all work. Like I have chorus wrasse because I want to keep the dinoflagellants at bay. I have bristle-toothed tangs because I want to keep the algae at bay. I only keep fish in my marine tanks to work. And I only keep fish in my freshwater tanks to spawn. I don't keep anything that I either can't spawn or doesn't have a job.
Sure. Let's see. Lacey's Place says, hello, everyone. Well, thank you so much, Lacey. I appreciate you popping in. Thanks, Mike. Susan was just saying thank you for the email, so she'll reach out to you.
Good.
Aqua Princess said, wow, that is crazy. That would be a great start, even if half those people showed up. I think with regard to the club. So, yeah, I definitely wish all you guys the best. I think it's a great thing that you guys are doing. Carlos is wondering, are there any conservation groups for barbs in general?
Just the CARES group. There are barbs on the CARES list. If you go to the CARES website, they do have cyprinids listed. Like I said, barbs are they're an underutilized, understudied, underappreciated fish in the hobby, which is the reason I started this 2.5 years ago with barbs.
Sure.
It's kind of like been a driving force and a passion is, let's bring these back to attention. Let's show how different they are. Let's show some of the behaviors that we've discovered. Let's show how, I mean, barbs, like if you keep the dwarf yellow clown barb in a heavily planted tank, that's a fantastic nano species, and it goes so good in a heavily planted tank. It won't even eat shrimp. I mean, it's just a fantastic little fish. Only gets about an inch long. I wish there was more resources out there. I'm trying to get more resources out there. I'm trying to raise awareness. Maybe I need to retire and write a book.
That's what I was. Yeah, it's funny that you say that, because that was going to be my very next question. Do you ever foresee yourself writing a book at some point?
I don't know. I'd like to, but with all the online content, I don't know if people would buy a book or if they just want to look for online content and subscribe to a blog.
I'll buy it. I'll be your first. Let's see. Just a couple minutes, you guys. Any last words for them? Anything maybe that wasn't addressed that you would like to point out?
That I want to point out?
Yeah.
Barbs are beautiful. They're easy. They're hardy. They're fun. They have very interesting behaviors. I mean, if you're looking for cichlid style behaviors, you can get it. If you're looking for live bearer style behaviors with a lot of live bearers, you get that delayed male who winds up just being this alpha male and develops late and really super. You can get the same thing with cyprinids, with barbs. You can get the sneaker male mating the same way you get with live bearers. Those types of traits you can get. The hierarchy that you get with cichlids, you can get in a good, nice kept shoal of almost any of the barb species. You can get the pecking order established. You don't have to worry about overpopulating your tank or overrunning your fish room with them. Just, you need to try them. I mean, almost all your fish stores will have one of the community fish. Checkered.
Sure.
Checkered barbs are great too. Heavily planted tank, you can put checkerboard barbs in.
Now, Candy was saying here, now with regard to cherry barbs, it looks like they haven't been the most hardy for her.
Right, because the pond bred fish, I'm not knocking Florida. They have to do what they have to do to make a living, but they've been so bred so heavily for so long that they're not as hardy as they used to be. You really need to find either a hobbyist or a store that carries a really good line of them. Like I say, locally, I don't sell the hobbyists here. I have listed them on occasion on my Get Gills page, my cherry barbs, because after 2.5 years, I've really worked with the hardiness of them. Some stores have a better strain than others. I know that the last I checked, Aquarium Co-op had a really good line. I was talking to him last April or last May, talking to Corey, and he had a really nice line of them that he was selling at Aquarium Co-op on the other side of the country.
Okay. Do you know? So Mr. B's is wondering if you know of a Mike DeWare, he's a barb guy.
No, I don't know Mike.
Let's see.
Hey, Aqua Apprentice, I said it wasn't knocking Florida.
No, he's just giving you a hard
I know.
time. The fish. So Mikey is wondering here, where did you get that shirt? I might have to get
That's
one.
pretty cool, isn't it? Actually, I was at the OCA convention, and somebody brought that for me and gave it to me at the OCA convention.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I bet if somebody brought me a shirt, it wouldn't say that.
The girl made up like a half a dozen of them, and for a bunch of different people, and she handed them out at the OCA. To,
sure.
Like a half a dozen of us got them with our names on them.
No, that's cool though. What are your thoughts on the therapeutic side of fish keeping in general and the benefits it brings, in your opinion?
I think it's fantastic. In fact, I actually worked with, and I almost set up a tank in the Alzheimer's ward at one of their retirement communities. They had a ward just for Alzheimer's because they've been showing that the therapeutic level for Alzheimer's patients in fish tanks is like out of this world. I don't have it as a business, and a business wound up putting a tank in there because they could maintain it better than I could as an individual. But I think the therapeutic is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, I work not as many hours as I used to. I used for basically from 1981 until like last year, I worked like 60 to 70 hours a week. To me, the de-stress of aquariums is totally worth it.
So what'd you guys think? I definitely want to thank Mike so much. This, if you guys weren't aware, I mentioned it before. We were out at the Shop Hop back last year, and I kind of put him on the spot in front of everybody, and I was actually expecting a different response, but it was like an emphatic response. Wouldn't tell me when to do it, so I'm really happy that he came on here and definitely just scratched the surface as far as the amount of knowledge. And this is just a tiny wee little bit of information that I constantly share with you guys about the importance of, you know, individuals been in the hobby for a very, very long time. You wonder where I learn things from guys like this. Let's see here. Vanessa said, thank you guys. We have Corey in the house. How you doing, buddy? Let's see. Very cool talk. Want to make sure we don't have any last questions. I think that hopefully we got to everybody.
The question on the easiest barbs up above.
Let's
scroll past. I don't remember who it was. Kyle.
Which barb, in your opinion, is the easiest to breed? Or are they all same as far as difficulty?
No, they're definitely not all the same as far as difficulty. In fact, a lot of them haven't even been bred in the hobby. It's unreported if they have been. But the easiest ones are obviously the staples. If you're looking for the absolute easiest barb of all to breed, it would be on the Conchianus, which is the red glass barb or the gold barb. The Conchianus has kind of been hybridized into a lot of different. But that, to me, is the absolute easiest. Cherry barbs, Puntus binoculatus, the red stripe barb, checkerboard, or not checkerboard barbs, black ruby barbs. Those are all about the same.
Sure.
Not quite as easy as like the red glass barb. The red glass barb, they are to barbs what the convict cichlid is to cichlid keepers as far as breeding.
Because
which was tough for me. The convict cichlid was tough for me. But anyway, But yeah, the red glass barb is probably.
I have a trio.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I actually, the first time I spawned mine, I got 6 without doing anything. I didn't even. They were still in the quarantine tank.
Sure.
And I pulled 6 fry out.
Nice.
I mean, they're the absolute easiest, and they have pretty good yields.
Sure.
And they're a good seller.
Oh, I like them. They're definitely a beautiful barb, that's for sure. Let's see.
I don't like the glow tiger barbs. I don't like when they do anything like that to fish.
Sure, I agree.
But, I mean, I don't like long fins either, but that's just me.
Yep.
I don't think you can improve on what God has made. But that is totally just me.
I agree. Let's see here. Jeff said, nice live stream. Now I have to go search some new types of barbs. Barb suggestions for a 10-gallon to get them started.
Suggestions for a 10-gallon? Red cherries work good in a 10, or... Yeah. Cherries work good in a 10-gallon. The dwarf clown barb works good in a 10-gallon. Puntus binoculatus, the red stripe barb, works good in a 10-gallon. Checkerboard barbs work good. Checkerboard barbs and the dwarf clown barb work really good in a heavily planted 10-gallon. Especially then they're small fish. They really look good. Look good in a heavily planted tank. Other 10-gallon ones, you could probably get away with black rubies if you only had like 5, which would be a small size for a shoal. And the red glass barbs, if you have a smaller shoal, you could keep in a 10-gallon. So, I mean, and those are all fairly available.
Awesome. So we're getting nothing but, which I had no hesitation that we would be getting solid feedback. So they're calling you the barb guru. So yeah,
not yet, but I'm working on it.
Oh, being modest. And you're not just familiar with barbs, so he's schooled me on a lot of different areas. Even the ones I have in there, what I thought I had, he told me right away by.
Oh yeah, the Angiosporus.
Yeah. So he's schooled me on what I thought I had, in less than probably about 3 seconds. I
spawned those Angiosporus.
Did you?
Yeah.
Nice.
I spawned them in a 10-gallon with pond stone on the bottom of it. I put 2 layers of pond stone down and put them in a 10-gallon and let them go for a week, and then pulled them out and had fry come up out of the pond stone.
That's a method I haven't tried.
Well, I put stones in all my tubs outside, and then this fall I looked at all the good algae growth on them and everything else, and with those, I've been getting fish out of my ponds all year, so I used that stone to protect the eggs in the pond. I moved all that stone into my breeder tanks.
Another great tip.
Easy. We're back to easy. I like easy.
Keep dropping the tips. Let's see. All right. Have you noticed any nutritional deficiencies in barbs?
No, but I feed a very varied diet with my barbs. I feed spirulina flake. I feed brine shrimp flake. I'll feed earthworm flake. I'll feed small cichlid pellets, simply because I still have them for when I had a lot of cichlids. I feed a very varied diet, so I haven't had any nutritional deficiencies in anything.
Sure.
If I ever saw sunken belly, which I've battled that with Victorian cichlids, I've never battled it with barbs, I would still fall back to my garlic-infused spirulina flake, because that's what I used when I got sunken belly on Victorian cichlids. I used that, and it helped a lot.
So last question here, and then we'll wrap things up. Now, can you just clarify on the pond stone? Is that are you referring to the same as a river stone, or?
I went to Lowe's and bought the 2 to 3 inch.
I was gonna say it'd be bigger than your common.
Yeah, 2 to 3 inch diameter rock. It was like $5 a bag, and I dumped a whole bag into one of my ponds, and then that was it. But it's basically 2 to 3 inch stone.
Okay.
River stone, I think, is finer when they sell it at the hardware store.
Yep.
It's the big stuff, so there's a lot of room for eggs to fall in between cracks. And
exactly. Because I've used the river stone. That's kind of what I was thinking. The larger makes sense.
If you use the larger ones, it gets a lot of room for the fry to go down in between them, and the eggs to fall down in between them. And the adults can't get in those nooks and crannies.
Sure.
It's kind of like building a rock pile in a shrimp tank.
Exactly. Yeah.
Same theory.
Exactly. Makes sense. All right. Any tips in boosting immunity in barbs?
When you're line breeding them or keeping a community tank?
Can you clarify that, Carlos?
When I'm line breeding them, with my cherry barbs, anything that didn't grow at the same rate as the others, I culled right away. And anything that got sick, I didn't try to get better when I was line breeding, because I didn't think I had a good enough genetics.
Yeah, he was referring to the community tank.
But in a community tank, I haven't had any problems. I haven't had any real issues. But like I say, I do use garlic-infused food. I use that at least once a week, and I use it consistently if I notice a problem. But I haven't had a big problem with barbs as far as any deficiencies or diseases or anything. I haven't really. I mean, I've lost an entire tank of live bearers, wild-type live bearers to ick, and I haven't lost an entire tank of barbs to anything yet in 2.5 years, knock on wood.
Awesome. So again, I'm gonna have to go back and digest a lot of the information myself, as I'm, like I said, beginning on here now about a year and a half. I started getting more into barbs. He definitely was a great influence with that in a positive way, because I definitely enjoy to branch out and try new things for sure. So I thank you so much for coming, especially battling the weather, because you're a little ways away from me.
And battle the weather Saturday. Come to the swap.
Yes.
Anybody close should come to the swap.
Absolutely.
Gonna be a ton of stuff there, a ton of plants, a lot of barbs. Gonna have a lot of barbs there.
I'll be there. Mike would be there. A lot of great vendors. Again, Eric Maxon through a club. Eric was in here earlier. Again, I can't say enough thank you personally to Eric, and I'm sure on behalf of everybody through the club. I want to say this is his 4th year or so putting on the swap, and
I think so.
he's done just an amazing job of bringing in not only vendors, but getting the communication out there. So I just want to personally thank you, Eric, for doing that. Thanks so much, Mike, for joining. Definitely check out everything down in the description. I'll add any other links. I think the email is the one I missed, so I will add that for you guys down below. Of course, we enjoy to carry on the conversation for you guys. I will do my best to answer any questions I can. If I can't give you an answer, I'll for sure reach out and get an answer for you. So if you guys are watching this in the replay, definitely continue the conversation down there. And as always, you guys stay encouraged. Keep on keeping on. Happy fishing. We'll talk to you guys right back here on the next one.